It's in the name.
Welcome into the Good Old Fashioned Dislike Podcast, brought to you by the Helping Healing Humor Podcast. You can get that podcast and all of our content at benandtravis.com. On this podcast, we typically pick a football rivalry, submit that rivalry, the panel dislike. They'll come up with reasons why we like one team, dislike one team, and vice versa. By the end, we come to a conclusion of where our loyalties lie, mainly based on football things, but that's what's so much fun. Be sure to tell us who you're going with in each matchup in the comments section. Now to the professionals of dislike. We start off with a round of 64 in the South, and we're going to have Ben picking the Tide over the winner of the previous game, the play-in game. And so they'll be playing, and of course, Ben is going to roll with the Tide here as the official pick in that matchup. All right, now we go to me, and I'm going to stick with the West Virginia Mountaineers over the Maryland Terrapins. Will is going to roll with Charleston, College of Charleston, in our Friday refresh upset of the San Diego State University. All right. Virginia. Now we're going to go with Blake, who's going to take Virginia over Furman. And Ben's going to pick the Crimson Tide's arch rival of the big dance, the Creighton Blue Jays, over in the NC State Wolfpack. I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears over California Santa Barbara. And Will is going to go with the SEC with Mizzou over Utah, even though that's been a popular pick. Blake takes Arizona over Princeton. And that wraps up the South for the round of 64. We move on to the East. Ben is going to be taking the Boilermakers over the play-in teams of Texas Southern or Fairleigh Dixon. I'm taking the Tigers of Memphis over Florida Atlantic. Will's going to go with the Blue Devils from Duke over Oral Roberts. Ben, let's see, Blake is, unfortunately, his pick is going to be the Vols and that throw up orange over the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana. Let's go Ragin' Cajuns. Ben flipped. He originally was going to go with Providence over Kentucky, but he flipped, went with the Wildcats over Providence. And then I'm a strong believer in the Big 12. I think they're strong this year, and I'm going to go with Kansas State over Montana State, which that's not a big stretch there at all. Will's going to take the Spartans over the Trojans in an ancient battle, 1-on-1. And Blake is rolling with Marquette over Vermont to wrap up the East in the Big 12, or in the East, the first round or second round. Midwest, Ben's going to go with the Houston Cougars to beat Northern Kentucky. And as much as it pains me, I'm going with the Plainsmen of Auburn to take down Iowa in a slight Friday refresh upset in Birmingham. Will's going to take the upset of Drake, the Friday refresh upset of Drake over the Hurricanes of Miami. And Blake's going to take the Hoosiers over the Golden Flashes of Kent State, while Ben takes Iowa State over the winner of Mississippi State and Pittsburgh's leading by 1.5. I'm rolling with the X-Men of Xavier over Richard Holdridge's Kennesaw State. Will takes the Aggies of Texas A&M over We Are Penn State. And Blake sets the state for the Aggies and Longhorns to renew their rivalry after the real UT defeats Colgate. In the West, Ben Hayes going with Kansas over Howard. It's a pretty easy pick. I believe Arkansas gets it done versus the Fighting Illini. Will is taking St. Mary's over Virginia Commonwealth. Blake loves the Huskies, but not the actual dog. But he's still going to take them to beat Iona. Man, I'm taking Auburn over Iowa, but I think it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be close, only because Auburn's playing in Birmingham. I think they get that done. Ben's going to trust the Horned Frogs not to get blown out by Arizona State Nevada winner. Probably a good move. I'm going with Gonzaga and the ageless wonder Timmy over Grand Canyon University. Tore us up in Birmingham a few months ago. The Tide. Will is taking the brain trust of Northwestern over the Boise State Broncos, and Blake is wrapping up the round of 64 by taking UCLA over UNC. No, not that UNC, but the one from Asheville. Yeah, the Tar Heels are at home. To the round of 32. We flip it over and we go back to the round of 32, and our resident Barner is going to take the Tide over the Mountaineers. I know that sets well with Jeff Taberner and our homies. Will's ready to go. He's ready to rock and roll through this pick'em. He's got some good picks, and one of those is he's picking Virginia to beat the College of Charleston. I'm taking the Creighton Blue Jays in the Friday refresh upset over the number 3 Baylor Bears. Ben is bringing Mizzou's run to an end at the hands of the Arizona Wildcats. Blake says 8. Memphis is going to refresh the board by taking out 1 seed Purdue in another Friday refresh upset. Will ends the long national nightmare as the Viles season comes to an end at the hands of the Duke Blue Devils. Thank you, Will, for doing me a solid there. I remain bullish on the Big 12 and take the Kansas State Wildcats to prove they are the superior Wildcats to the ones from the Bluegrass State. Ben says Marquette ends Sparty's season. And Auburn, well, I'll just say it. Blake Coleman flipped. He originally had Houston beating Auburn, but he's going to let his true colors show as he keeps Auburn Tigers warring with a Friday refresh upset of Houston in Birmingham. Will picks the Hoosiers to end Drake's little mini run and a shot at Cinderella. Let's see, Ben. I'm taking Xavier to end Iowa State season and turn them into the Blue Cyclones. Ben takes the Texas A&M Aggies in a Friday refresh upset over the rival Texas Longhorns. Man, that'll be a fun one to get into. Hey, man, congratulations on being baptized. That's great. That is great. And as I mentioned, that upset the Friday refresh. It's a 3 to 5 minute podcast that is released every other Friday. Check it out at benandtravis.com. Blake's going to take Kansas over our Kansas. Will takes the UConn Huskies over St. Mary's. I'm taking the Zags over the Horned Frogs, and Ben wraps up the second round with UCLA over Northwestern. Bring on the Sweet 16, and that brings up Will's rolling with the Crimson Tide, excusing the Cavaliers from the dance, having no mercy on the Virginias. The Crimson Tide taking it out on them. I'm taking the Arizona Wildcats to keep the Crimson Tide from meeting arch rival Creighton in the Elite Eight. Thank you, Arizona. And, man, Ethan Lamberth, your Miami Hurricanes got put out. Will called it there in the first round. And Blake says Duke ends the Memphis Tigers run. Ben says that Marquette closes out Kansas State down there in the Sweet 16. Will says the Hoosiers are going to close out the Auburn Tigers. Travis takes the X-Men professors to beat the Aggies. Blake chooses the Jayhawks to end UConn's run. And let's see. Ben's going to predict that UCLA punches the last spot in the Elite Eight by beating Northwestern. Or beating Gonzaga, excuse me. All right, on to the Elite Eight. I'm just going to tell you, this is just straight up me being a homer for the Crimson Tide, and I'm going with the Crimson Tide beating Arizona to make it to their first Final Four in program history. Blake says the Blue Devils, I'll get it right, of Duke, will be waiting on Alabama by a Friday refresh upset of Marquette to make it to the Final Four. And let's see. Ben's going to take Xavier over the Hoosiers of Indiana, and Will says Kansas will face Xavier in the Final Four. So there we are. Final Four. And Will and Blake got to vote between the Crimson Tide and Duke to make it to the national championship, and both of them, even resident Barner Blake Holloman, went with the Crimson Tide to make their first national championship. We did let Ben do some of the picking. Yeah. Oh, and we are now to the Final Four. You have the Final Four. We have West Virginia making it to be facing the Tide there, Jeff Taberner, but getting put out. Ben and I both voted for Kansas to make it to the national championship, and there you have it. We have the national championship of Alabama and Kansas. We let everybody have a little bit of vote. I'm taking the Kansas Jayhawks because there is no way Bama cuts down the nets on my birthday. I'm just not living that right, just not living that right. Love you too, Max Hall. Love you too. Yeah, I'm not living right enough for Bama to cut down the nets on national championship on my birthday. The other guys, I picked Kansas to win 83-82. Will keeps the Tide rolling. He says the Crimson Tide are going to be national champions, and they're going to be cutting down the nets, and that's why we love him, among many other reasons. He has the Tide winning 75-68 over the Kansas Jayhawks. Blake says Kansas is going to take the big trophy home and the Nets 72-66, and Ben is taking Kansas over Bama 90-85. So the official dislike national championship goes to the Kansas Jayhawks of the Big 12, which has been a murderous conference. So there you have it, folks. That's our official pick. That's the official good old-fashioned dislike pick. Be sure to click the link in the description to join our pick'em bracket. We'd love for you to come in there. If you can beat us, if you can win the whole thing, then you get to pick something fun from the benandtravis.com/store as your prize. And, of course, since this is the good old-fashioned dislike, we're going to give out the golden thumbs down, and that's to college basketball officiating, especially the Southeastern Conference officials. All right, guys, so you guys take it easy. Hope your picks go well, unless, of course, you got Alabama losing early, and then I hope you're dead wrong about that, ladies and gentlemen. So be sure to check out benandtravis.com. Get all of our good stuff over there. Good, fun content. It's been a great season of good old-fashioned dislike. Looking forward to doing some more. Might have another if the Tide makes it that far. So take it easy.